because we are in the beginning, we have not been consummating this secondary cycle. So where we are going to end, because
Yeah, he plays with the blue and the indigo blue. I think that it's very hard to get green to be anything but third ray. But yellow, with its emphasis on harmony, Mercury and the bridge, gives us a chance to make the third ray responsive to the Buddhic note, which is a yellow note. It's the note me and the mi. And it gives us the type of third ray which is connected to the fourth ray and therefore a good bridge into our second ray solar system. Because we know, with Master Decay, the colors yellow and blue seem to be quite prominent in what he is. The final reason is about, did you say the light that they are representing? It shields some kind of life. Okay. Yes. Yes, but not to the second ray, whereas yellow can definitely be related to the second ray. And in terms of complementary colors, not exactly, but it does carry the Buddhic note, and the second ray involves the sixth principle on the Buddhic plane. So it's a very good bridge toward what has to be developed in in our particular solar system. If I think I'm a third ray monad, so for some reason I relate much more fully to the color yellow than to the color green. This is just a personal, individual statement, but I think people have to see how it goes for them. Okay. The suns of aspiration, or the points of yellow life. Remember, every life is a point. They have a close connection to our Earth scheme. They have a number of similar rays, especially the third ray, and related to our fourth scheme. They carry the fourth ray, not so much via the fifth ray. And the old commentary refers to this in the words, the points of golden flame, and this seems more golden than yellow, merge and blend with the four-leaved plant of tender green. The plant, of course, relates to the note Fa, the green note, the note of the previous solar system, and all of the elemental life is under the note green. And change its color to a tinge of autumn yellow. So Mercury is a transitional planet, changing the green toward autumn yellow, which is a way of bringing the green of the third ray in line with the harmony of our particular system. The four-leaved plant, through new and fresh inflow, becomes the plant with 7 leaves and 3 white flowers. So somehow the higher principles are conveyed, the higher ethers are conveyed by Mercury, and the 3 white flowers seem to suggest the atmic plane, or the triple flowers, as they are sometimes called. I think, is that correct? The triple flowers? Let's just check. 2, 3, 6. Um, yes, yes, but it's white. It gives us white. The triple flowers. So, Mercury is particularly involved with the transmission of higher ethers into lower ethers. It's very good at making that kind of bridge. The triple flowers. It doesn't say white, but it says the triple flowers here. Atma. I didn't say anything about white, except that it belongs to the spiritual triad. It belongs to the spiritual triad. So, what do various planets bring from the realm of the cosmic ethers? Uranus, which falls in Scorpio, where the moon is, it shocks the form and impresses upon it an entirely new way of being. Jupiter is different. Jupiter, the exalted Jupiter, is in Cancer, the sign of the moon, well placed and gives fulfillment of the form. Not so much the shock, but the constructive expansion of consciousness of the form, whereas Uranus is much more violent and disruptive in what it brings to the lower ethers. When it comes to Mercury, it's barter and exchange. Mercury is all about exchange of energies. Barter is trading, barter. And it gives the exchange of substances whereby the etheric body can begin to carry the energy of the cosmic ethers. And Mercury is the bridge to allow that to happen. So we start out with 4, which is strictly elemental, the 4-leaf plant of tender green. But we change the color to harmony, and then the 7 principles of man manifest. The 4-leaf plant, though new and fresh inflow, through new and fresh inflow, becomes the Saptaparna. Saptaparna, the 7-leaf plant, which is man. Saptaparna. And 3 white flowers, and the fact that they are white means it's impersonal. 3 white flowers shows that this type of energy is above the color of the causal body. So somehow Mercury really takes the kind of third ray condition of the 4-leaved plant and makes it a yellow 7-leaved plant, which harmonizes more with the new solar system. It particularly conveys buddhi. Now, why? Buddhi is interesting. Buddhi is either yellow, blue, or violet. So we've talked about this. Buddhi is yellow for man. Buddhi is blue for the planetary logos. Buddhi is violet for the solar logos. And there you have the 3 planets we've been talking about. Uranus, violet. The shock of the intuition, the shock of recognition. Jupiter, the blue. And Mercury, the yellow. So Mercury is involved in completing the human being in this solar system, adding the triangle to the square and changing the whole of it to yellow. Autumnal yellow, which he says is in harmony, hence its 4th ray nature. Mostly we're not talking about monadic rays here. Mostly we're talking about the rays that are expressing through the soul nature of these particular planets. So we have an aspiration here to the cosmic ethers and the possibility of bringing in the completing energy and above all changing green to yellow, which I think is very important. If you look at the note Fa, it's wherever it is here. That note Fa is purely a 3rd ray note. It purely represents the personality. It purely represents the past. But some of those who came over from the previous solar system brought with them the possibility of adapting the regime of the previous solar system to the requirements of the present solar system, and that's the relationship between yellow, or autumnal yellow, and green. At least that's the way I see it at this time. Yes. Yes. Go ahead. They are. They are. I don't see. I see mostly Jupiter being royal blue and violet or magenta. I don't see a yellow with Jupiter. I don't see a third ray with Jupiter. I see a seventh ray, a kind of a sixth ray for idealism and aspiration. I definitely see a second ray, and then again 7 and 1 possibly. But they are, as you say, the rulers of the mutable cross, and their relationship is very important in yellow and blue. When I look at yellow and blue, I think of Master Decay particularly. He has that mercurial illumination and great expansiveness of conception coming in on Jupiter. Well, they do make green in pigment. That's for sure. They do. Yeah. The question is, he leaves it ambiguous. Why does he use light sometimes? Why does he use pigment other times? And you would think that when dealing with monadic energy, he would use light, but he doesn't. In esoteric, in a treatise on white magic, he deals with this. Yellow for the primary ray. Okay, here we have yellow primary ray. This should be this esoteric psychology, actually. There are 3 major rays, red, blue, and yellow, and 4 subsidiary colors, which in the evolving monad find their correspondence in the spiritual triad and lower quaternary. The interesting thing, in some ways, the spiritual triad is very much related to Mercury. It rules the ajna center, the triangle here, and the spiritual triad, which uses the ajna center. The logos of our system concentrating on the love or blue aspect is concentrating on the love or blue. This, as the synthesis, manifests as indigo. The matter of the rays and their colors is confusing to the neophyte. I can indicate, but indicates some thoughts. And in the accumulation of suggestion, light may eventually come. The clue lies in the similarity of color, which entails a resemblance in note and rhythm. When therefore a man is on the red and yellow rays, with yellow as his primary ray, and meets another human being who is on the blue and yellow rays, with a secondary resemblance to the yellow, there may be recognition. In other words, the personality ray is yellow in both cases, but not the primary monadic ray. But when a man on the yellow and blue rays, with yellow as his primary color, meets a brother on the yellow and red rays, the recognition is immediate and mutual, for the primary color is the same. When this fundamental cause of association or dissociation is better understood, the secondary colors will be made to act as the meeting ground to the mutual benefit of both parties concerned. Of the colors, red, blue, and yellow are primary and irreducible. Now, that's just pigment. That's not light. They are the colors of the major rays, and there they are. And here are the orange, green, and violet, with, I suppose, indigo as the synthetic color. Yes. Well, I'm not sure. It seems to be in the 5th position. But, yeah, it's difficult to know exactly what he means because orange is certainly connected with the mental plane. And green, of course, 2 times 3 is 6. I mean, there is a connection there between the green and the astral body. The violet seems to be the etheric body. And yellow is, indigo is the synthesizing color. Well, this is not easy. He has said many things that are a bit maddening, and it's hard to make it work exactly. Yes, that's right. And that would be, of course, in the case of green, it would be red. In the case of orange, it would be blue. In the case of violet, it would be yellow. Anyway, this is something to study. And for those who think they may have a third ray monad, work with yellow and green and see how it works out. He seems very intent on using the color yellow as primary with respect to the primary ray. Okay. The 3 white flowers, like I say, do suggest a triad somewhere, and they suggest an impersonal trans-color expression, a synthetic expression for Mercury. Septiparna. Okay. Now, moving on. It leaves you a little unsatisfied because he just gives the barest hint at things. Your tendrils go out a little bit, and you get to understand what is taught a little bit on these schools, how to link the triad with the man, how to fuse the higher triad and the lower triad. That's what Mercury seems to give. Mercury is the Antakarana, and it gives you that ability to link these 2 triads. And Mercury gives you the ability to transform something that is solidly third ray into a third ray color, which can relate to a second ray color because it has the Buddhic quality. Okay, here comes Venus. Venus, the school with 5 strict grades. Probably when we think of easygoing Venus, we don't think of this. This, again, is a planetary scheme closely related to ours, but its planetary logos is in a more advanced group of students in the cosmic sense than is our planetary logos. Well, Venus is developing buddhi very thoroughly. Venus is a sacred planet, ours is not. Venus has probably taken its 5th in a sequential group of initiations, and we're only working on 4. Venus is working on the cosmic astral plane on the 6th subplane, from the 5th to the 6th, and we are working from the 4th to the 5th. Venus has overcome personality. We have not. Venus is in its 5th and final round, and that may be not just a chain round, but a round that involves all of the chains, so it would be a scheme round. And we are simply in our 4th scheme round and 4th chain round. So we are behind in every way, although we are meant to be equal to Venus at this time. The twin sisters are meant to be equal, and maybe Earth had a bad marriage, something like that. And Venus is taking her under her wing. Most of its hierarchical instructors come from the 5th cosmic plane. That's very high, namely the cosmic mental plane, and are a peculiar group of Manasa Devas, of very exalted rank, let's just say higher in rank than the solar angels who came to Earth. They are each depicted in the archives of our hierarchy as holding a trident of fire surmounted by 5 green emeralds. Well, this trident of fire, what does it suggest to you? Okay, it seems warm in here, but I might just be burning up. Okay, a trident of fire. Well, what when it comes to absorption at the end of the solar system or at a certain point of the solar system, where does Venus go? Into what planet are the inner principles of Venus absorbed? Neptune, exactly. So there's our connection here with this trident of fire, and also the possibility of thinking about Narada, Sanat Kumara, as the main yogi, or Shiva, because the trident is also the symbol of the Lord Shiva, who works through a very strict form of yoga. And there's the old thing in the secret doctrine. We oftentimes think Venus and Jupiter are very friendly to each other, but not in the secret doctrine. They fight each other. Because Jupiter, loving its exalted moon, wants to feed the ancestral and family fires down on the 4 lower levels of the elemental life. And Venus, Narada, Sanat Kumara, says, no, be a yogi and forget those fires and come to me. Become a Kumara, become a chaste youth. So Venus is very exacting in this respect, just the way Sirius is very exacting. We sometimes say, oh, happy humanity will tread the path to Sirius, singing and dancing on the square on their way there. But Sirius is tremendously exacting. He says it's a very difficult path, full of opportunity. So what are these emeralds? And why 5? Well, yes, it could be 5 rays, and of course there is the powerful 5th ray soul of Venus, and there is the connection of Venus with the previous solar system whose color was green. And there is the transition from the solar angels are promoting a transition from the themes of the previous solar system to the themes of the present solar system. In other words, the 5 green emeralds are all about the energies of the solar system whose number was 5, the previous one. Neptune is Vishnu, isn't it? Neptune is that being whose nature is of the second ray monad. And Venus, if you think about what it does, it sort of saves us through transmutation and alchemy from being the victim to the previous number 5. Venus helps us make the transition from 5 to 3, to 7. Venus helps man make the transition from 5 to 7. Now, what do you make out of this 5 strict grades? Well, just think of our system of initiation. In a way, Sirius is supposed to be the sponsor of the whole initiatory program on our planet, right? But I'll bet it does that via Venus. And that Venus, the hierarchical workers on Venus, are in a way the prototype for what the hierarchy has become. Now, we do have 5 strict grades, don't we? Now, should they begin at 1 and 2, the initiation of the threshold, or should they be from 3 to 7? Okay, so should these 5 strict grades be from initiation 1 to 5, or from the solar initiations 3 to 7? Yes? Of the threshold. So it may be that Venus is involved with taking us all the way up to transfiguration in the Sirian sense. The very first initiation from Sirius is which in our solar system? In other words, we have planetary initiations, we have solar initiations, we have Sirian initiations. Which is the first 5? Initiation 5. So that's the first initiation from Sirius. 6 is the baptism or purification in the Sirian system. And 7 is the transfiguration in the Sirian system. And Christ is a Sirian initiate. And of course, he's very connected with the planet Venus. So maybe it is from 3 to 7. Now, what do you make of the word strict? And why strict in relation to this? Okay, they are higher initiations, and you know, there's nothing easy about the system of training that is given. So maybe the people on Venus, the man on Venus, is being trained all the way from illumination up to resurrection, and doing it very fast. You know, when we think about what does it take to be an initiate, we oftentimes underestimate what it really takes and how strict we have to be with ourselves. Of course, when you use the word strict, what other planet seems to come in relation to this word? Saturn. Yeah. Straight? Uh-huh. It may be so. It means you cannot deviate from the geometry. And it is, you cannot get out of line. When something is strict, you have no latitude to take things in your own way. You have to conform. So Saturn does seem to be there, especially in relation to the green emeralds and the Brahmic number 5. So, you know, when we're looking at our horoscopes and we want to see what Venus can give us, there's no reason to think of it only as candy and ice cream. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's, from the soul perspective, it's very demanding and takes us into illumination, contemplation, inspiration, initiation, all those words. DK said, look, you will be using Venus in the horoscope of the disciple, and it's very important that you do so. We're so used to looking at it just in terms of relationship or, you know, that which appeals. But it also is the demand of the soul very strongly. So I think we have to have a new respect for the occultism of Venus, which leads to the occultism of Sirius. And like I said, there are different planetary stations. When you choose the path to Sirius, I'm pretty sure you will find yourself on Venus for quite a while, being toned up for an experience with a star that basically has the same rays as Venus. Well, there's so much. It's the star of sensitivity, star of initiation, brilliant star of sensitivity. It's it is the star which gives it gives the Masonic Blue Lodge its prototype. There's a great white lodge on Sirius, which is the prototype of our lodges here. It has 3 types of lives, particularly all evil has been defeated on Sirius. In the sunshine of that major sun. So Sirius has done what our solar logos would like to do, and Venus has done what our planetary logos would like to do, and those are our great prototypes. We look towards those brilliant, lighted, monastically brilliant orbs. I believe the soul ray of Sirius is 5th, that its personality ray is the 2nd, just like Venus's personality ray is the 2nd, which is why we respond to it so much in terms of relationship. I just think that Sirius is like a big Venus, with a 6th ray monad, the loyal dog following Orion, and an eventual cosmic Christ 2nd ray soul. Remember, this whole thing about having 2 monadic rays ends up being pretty important. And DK does talk about the major monadic ray. And in the Blessed Ones, from esoteric psychology, he gives you 7 monadic ways of operating, and yet saying there are only 3 major ones. So when you're assigning rays to these great planetary and stellar beings, we have to keep that in mind. On the planet at the moment, there's a big battle between Venus and Mars. Certain groups represent the aggression and individualism of Mars, which is a non-sacred planet, which has in a way outlived its warlike nature. It's like Earth is caught in the middle between the aggression of Mars and the promise of Venus for peace, right human relations, and soul, consciousness, and brotherhood. So one of the big issues at the moment is whether Mars will win or whether Venus will win. Now, since the Prince of Peace, which is the Christ, who is the Christ, is planning to appear and is doing his best to avert a final war, Mars, there's a pretty good chance that Venus will win and the era of peace will supervene. But we surely in our own life have to learn how to cultivate Venus and make of Venus a subset, make of Mars a subset of Venus. Mars is good, but it can't be on its own. It has to be serving what Venus is meant to give as the ruler of Libra, which is increasing in the planetary horoscope. So, do we live the Venusian life? It's not a question of what our sign is or whatever. It's like asking, do we live the life of the soul? And all of us could be thinking about that. And the Venus position in our chart would reveal very much the kind of influence that we should appropriate as we try to live the life of the soul. I mean, we can't go around preaching the life of the soul unless we manage to live it somehow. And that means that our conflicts and our wars and our arguments and, all this misunderstandings and all that stuff on the Martian personality level should fade into the background. So I like very much this school on Venus. And when I'm a 6th degree initiate, I'll just decide whether to go there or not. Although, he did say that if you have a lot of manas developed, that Sirius is not the place for you. Other places, other destinations are the place for you. And so when you're really following Master DK's stuff, you really get into it. and you're developing the kind of manas and pure reason that he's trying to inculcate, it may be that the bulk of humanity goes to Sirius, but not the profound students of the teaching. I'm not sure that there is a most likely place, but the ray path is an attractive one. It's the fifth path. The fifth ray monads tend to go to the path of magnetic work, the second path. And those who really have the yen for sacrifice may, if Sanat Kumara approves it, hang out here on the earth for quite a long time on the path of earth service, fighting their way towards identification. Then, of course, there are the more advanced paths, like the path of our solar logos, and some people ambitiously talk about how they're really treading that path, but they have no idea, because that really would be a post-Syrian path. And then there's the path of the karmic lords, number 7, the path of absolute sonship, as well as 2 other paths unnamed but said to now exist, which is why the Pleiades thing is really interesting, because there are 9 major Pleiades if you add the mother and father. Atlas and Pleione, the mother and father. So, but remember, any of these paths, you have to be a 6th degree initiate to tread them. And Sanat Kumara, if you make mastership, will keep you working a good long time as a master on this planet, not sending you away on one of these great adventures. So, you know, all through even if you should achieve mastership during the Aquarian Age, the remainder of the Aquarian Age is probably pretty much determined as staying here on this planet. But of course, we have to get rid of any kind of personality sense of these paths. You are, by that time, a 6th degree initiate. You are a planetary event. Your initiation is a planetary event. You are a planetary life entering the 6th kingdom. And nothing personal will determine your decision. It will all be about the welfare of the larger whole, which you begin to sense. Even though mistakes can be made, and what was really extraordinary is the Buddha made that mistake out of profound compassion for humanity, choosing the path that was not really his. And the Tibetan says a most understandable mistake. But maybe after a few thousand years now, he's correcting this. He was very somehow attached. The great Lord of detachment was somehow attached. He taught supreme detachment, but remained attached to teach it. So, you know, if you've read the Buddha, you know, when they write down what he has said, it has the utmost directness and simplicity about it. There's nothing third ray, turning this way and that way about it. It is absolutely clear and direct. So there's no question. If you listen to what he's saying, you know what you have to do. His is the simplicity of the type of second ray soul that goes to Shambhala. The Buddha was key with that. Master DK is not that. Master DK has that. He has the love, but the emphasis is on the specialized detail and meticulous entirety. Master DK gives the amazing intricacy of ideas that are found in the doctrines of Tibetan Buddhism, and has done it in such a way that we who are in the West can somehow have a chance of absorbing this. So, you know, for all these second ray souls in here, there are lots. You will have to decide which type of the 3 second ray souls you are. The simplicity wisdom type, the pure love type, or the specialized detail type. And that will make a big difference, because they are in a way so different that some could wonder, are they even second ray, all of them? But yet they are. Okay, any questions about this so far? Because we're about to get into Mars. The rays of Mars. I believe the final monad of Mars is 1, but the penultimate monad is 5. DK has not said it. I'm just speculating. A 6th ray personality, a 1st ray soul, a 5th ray monad, a 1st ray monad, a 3rd ray body, a 6th ray astral body, maybe a 4th ray mind. These are speculations. Yes, as you know, there's quite a relationship between 5 and 1, just the way there is between 5 and 3. Yes, Anamina. I believe so. But you know, and 5 monad. It's the orange planet. It rules concrete science. It rules the 5 senses. It has everything to do with the number 5 in the lower worlds. St. Paul is a totally Martian example of the 5th ray as it works through a Chohan. But we know St. Paul is really a 1st ray monad. DK gave it to us that he's one of those who takes the kingdom of heaven by storm. And that is the 1st ray monad. That was one of his favorite quotations. He was always talking about that, and then DK writes about those are 1st ray monads. So it's pretty clear. You know, if you've read his book, Light on the Path, it doesn't sound very scientific, does it? It's extremely militant. Kill out this, kill out that, kill, kill, kill. By the time you've finished the first 2 pages, you've killed 10 times. Say it again, please. I think 6, yeah. Here's my assumption, that the usual rays given for the non-sacred planets are the personality ray. The usual rays given for the sacred planets are the soul ray, that which they express most. You know, like we know that the Earth is essentially a 2nd ray planet, but the number of times we hear 3rd ray Earth, 3rd ray, is because it expresses more through its personality now than it does through its soul. And Mars is always talked about as the militant 6th ray. But I think some of this will become clear if we look at this. Now, you know, maybe you've sometimes wondered when you've read Esoteric Psychology 1, why is it that the names of the 6th ray Lord sound so very 1st ray? And somehow the names of this 6th ray Lord are very Martian. The Neptune is not given as the peaceful, passive, mystical approach in these, well, you know, I mean, a picture's worth 1,000 words. I think you know what I mean. Yes, but Neptune especially. You know, of course, because of the 6th ray, there is a relationship, of course. He's given us so much, you know. We sometimes say, oh, just another list of names. The visioner of reality, the devotee of life, the hater of forms, the warrior on the march, the sword bearer of the Logos, the breaker of stones, the imperishable flaming one, the one whom naught can turn, the implacable ruler, the general on the perfect way, the one who leads the 12. You feel the 1st ray in some of these names, because somehow he has not chosen to emphasize the Neptunian approach at all, you know, for whatever reason. And oftentimes he does a peculiar thing. When he talks about the 2nd ray, he just doesn't emphasize love. He just emphasizes the cold wisdom aspect sometimes, as he does in Esoteric Psychology 1. So you wonder, where is the ray of the Christ in this second ray? It just depends on what he's emphasizing at any one time. And that's why one tries to read more of the books so as to know where to go to get a completed point of view. Okay. Now, Mars. A question, Anna Minna, yes. Well, they have to find which type they are. Page 518. Page 518 in Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 2. 518. It's one of my favorite quotations because somehow so many in Master DK's group are on the second ray, and they need to be clear about what they are doing. Now, I would say that if you're a really DK person, here it is. Here's the quotation. Those upon the second ray, as you know, fall, as you know, into two groups, generally speaking. There are naturally numerous exceptions, okay. Well, maybe we'll discover what those exceptions are sometime. Souls on the wisdom aspect of the second rays, like the Buddha, go to Shambhala and join the Great Council in some capacity or other. Such a one was the Buddha. Wisdom. Now, oftentimes when DK is telling his students, you're on the wisdom side, he doesn't really differentiate between wisdom and the second type of second ray soul. Such a one was the Buddha. Those on the love aspect of the second ray tread one or other of the various paths, primarily that of world saviors. They become the divine psychologists, like Roberto Assagioli, let's say, the world teachers. The Christ combined in himself all of these traits. He had what the Buddha had. He had psychology. He had the teaching. He had all that. Those in the second group of souls upon the second ray likewise fall into two groups. They follow the way of specialized detail and of a comprehensive inclusiveness and are the outstanding occultists. The other group is distinguished by pure love. Of the group which finds its way into Shambhala, a developed simplicity, like the Buddha, will be found to govern all relations. So, wisdom and simplicity, pure love, occultism, and specialized detail. These are the three approaches. Now, you can't choose which you will do. You are, or one thing or the other. And I tend to think that those who do an awful lot of astrology fall in the third group because they're used to all of this complex interrelation of things, like DK. DK is the perfect example of the third group occultism. A lot of Buddhists, if they were to come into a class like this, they just throw up their hands. Where's the simplicity? Where's the Eightfold Path? Where's the Four Noble Truths? Where is the direct method of achieving? Why are you talking about all this complex stuff? And yet it's still the second ray. The Buddha had a first ray personality, second ray soul, and a third ray monad. He really was well suited to the earth, a 3-2-1, only in a way reversed, because earth is 1-2-3. And the Christ is pretty clear. He had a sixth ray personality, a second ray soul, and a second ray monad. Master DK, third ray monad, second ray soul. What is his personality ray? That's more difficult. What is it here? I just said it's more difficult to determine Master DK's personality ray, but he does have a lot of ray 1 in his triad. So he's got some ray 1 up there. He says, I'm teaching some first ray students in my group, and don't forget, I've got quite a bit of it in my triadal level. So anyway, the masters know who they can teach. The School for Warriors, or the Open Grades for Soldiers. Soldiers. Mars is ever the soldier. 4 of these planetary schools are responsible for the energy flowing through the 4 most exponents of the 4 castes, and this not only in India, but in all parts of the world. Well, let's just say Mars. How do you call them? Kshatriyas? Is that what it is? Mars and the Kshatriyas, or the warriors. The Sudras are the untouchables. The gosh, I can't remember all of them. The Brahmins may be very Jupiterian, and there's a term for the mercantile class. Would it be the school on Saturn? I'm not sure. But anyway, the school for Mars is the school for warriors. Its teachers are spoken of as graduates of the ruddy fire. Now, what are our graduates called? We meditated on it this morning. We are graduates of what? Graduates of painful endeavor. Ah, remember that? It's not exactly graduates of the ruddy fire. Ruddy, of course, is red. Red is a color which goes with the undeveloped 6th ray and the highly developed 1st ray. Red is the esoteric color of the 1st ray, and it's one of the colors of the 6th ray. Okay. Let's see what he says. And are frequently portrayed as clothed in red robes, carrying ebony wands. Quite dramatic, it could be like Star Wars, Red robes and black wands. Ebony is the dark wood. It's black wood, right? Bark. Maybe we have our own symbolism to show what they are like. Mars probably had a lot of things, but it's in obscuration right now. Oh, a lot is going on in our solar system, We're just awakening to that. I talked to a guy who said, oh, the people who take pictures of Mars, they're regularly airbrushing out all the detail they find because it's too much for people to take in. The mountains, the civilization, the road, and all. It's just airbrush it out so we don't have to be bothered. Well, in other words, when you get pictures of Mars, they aren't necessarily what the picture originally showed. Yes, I do. I do. Yes. Well, Mount Olympus and all the rest of it, I do believe it. I do. And I also, we're talking about, does Mars have a civilization? Are there remnants on Mars of a former time? and also the moon. Apparently, the airbrush technique is pretty much used in relation to the moon as well. And then what about extraterrestrials? There's so many people that believe in them, but the government is careful not to release too much information about them, even though high-level people seem to see demonstrations of this kind of activity. So let's just see how that all emerges. Really? Wow.
But it is interesting that you have in Mars, you have this pyramid type.
Yeah, you do. You have that.
And that thing that it has been now proven about the water is seen in Mars.
Yes, I think Michael has seen all the roads and stuff out there.
In my dreams. Yeah, you know how it is. But I'm afraid that people would be only too happy to be thrown out. As we grind on reading these things. No relenting. Not even taking time to eat ice cream and candy. Gisela has pointed out to me how I tend to hold people using Aquarius, and I don't let them go have their Venus and Taurus food because I have a square. We talk about the Indian castes, but he enlarges the idea. Yeah. The Brahmin philosophers, what is it? The caste of merchants. Is it Vyasyas or Kshatriya? Commercials, yeah. Here, let's just see how this might work. Let's see how this might work. Hold on. The Untouchables. The Untouchables don't.
Hey, there's a new email of David Walters. Elena sent you his new email address.
A new email address.
It said so, and you gave us the wrong one.
Oh.
See, Elena, new email address of David Walters.
Okay. vulcanray1@yahoo.com. I think there's no question here. vulcanray1@yahoo.com. He's a nice guy, really, a very nice guy. And totally obsessed with Vulcan. You can be talking about whatever, and his next statement will be all about Vulcan. Okay, let's see. Okay.
I Tibet, de är...
This is looking like a little difficult. It's just, what is the commercial class? What is the commercial caste in India? I know the name, but I can't think of it. I can't think of it. This is, maybe you can find out what it is. I think we have three of them. The Sudras, who are the untouchables, the Kshatriyas, who are the warriors, the Brahmins, who are the scholars at the top, and then the, I don't know, the commercial class. I'm having a third-ray block. Yes, here let's just say four castes of Hinduism. Four castes of Hinduism. Four caste-related castes. From the Copenhagen University. Here it is. Vaishyas, the merchants and peasants. Shudras, Vaishyas, Kshatriyas, and Brahmins. The priests of the temple, that's the Jupiter. So he connects to Jupiter, Mars. Commercial is hard to say. Sometimes Mercury is involved. And the Shudras, normally you would have the moon. But could it be the Earth? Could Earth itself be the untouchables? Shudras? Yeah, well, that's the yeah. That's it. Even as a Shudra, even your shadow is considered impure. This is why I mostly lived away from society. But of course, from a higher point of view, an untouchable is someone who is completely identified with reality, which God cannot be touched, untouched and unafraid. For A, unchanged. Let's see. Untouched, unafraid, unsomething for A, unchanged. Okay, so anyway, I didn't read this last sentence. They work under the first aspect, logoic, and train those whose work is along the line of the destroyer. So obviously, first ray is involved here, not just the sixth ray. Now, there must have been a lot of those students in Rome. And probably we have had some very, what about Sparta? We've had some very warlike groups. And also the ancient Hebrews had a lot of this Mars thing and worked under the first ray. So I think, the soul ray is ray 1, but there's all this devotion. It's the path of the warrior in many respects. Well, that's the thing. Can they use their warriorship not to serve selfishness? You might say that the samurai are under this, under Scorpio, under wars, under Mars. So this, I'm not sure who would go to Mars for this kind of training, but it would be under the first aspect. It will have to lead to a solar system or a constellation outside our own. Soldiers, the forecasts, the kshatriyas, graduates of the ruddy fire, red robes, ebony wands, which probably can actually do something. They work under the first aspect, logoic. And you know, there are these schools of warriorship, very high principles. The martial arts can be involved here. Very highly principled and impersonal and noble and not related to anger. In other words, if you become angry, you have failed. Well trained, you say? There was that movie with that series with David Carradine. Was it Shaolin Monastery, and it was called Kung Fu, I guess. In those old days, you're always supposed to hold yourself in restraint and only let these powers go when it's absolutely necessary, and never for your own personal selfishness. Yes, even now. I remember a movie. It was called, it was about the Japanese and the Brits in Second World War. And this very samurai type of guy, there was a rebellious English fellow, and he was just going to leave him out to roast in the sun and die. But he said, because of the principles, he said, well, do you have any last request? And he said, well, you know, this is Australian mentality. I'd like a cold beer. And so the Japanese commander could not provide a cold beer, so he let him go. It was what? Neville Shute? Uh-huh, okay. It was, it was a town called Alice. Alice, Australia. So he had such a code of honor that he could not say, well, I'm sorry, we don't have a beer, we're going to kill you anyway, because he couldn't honor his request. So that's pretty, you know.
But I saw a document by BBC in the play a few years ago.
A document by BBC. A man was showing the martial arts. He looked like Kitaro. Tall, long hair. Incredibly good looking man. Just like your husband.
Like my husband.
Yeah.
I was thinking Michael all the time.
He could do amazing things.
He was in
Different positions. They interviewed him. Such calm, godlike, divine energy. How he spoke about the martial arts. And then he was showing. He put a blindfold on him. He's on the trapeze wire with his blindfold. With his sword.
And he tells how you have to, that the warrior cannot think.
The warrior cannot think. The warrior becomes one with the air. There he is. Somebody's throwing an apple. Cuts it in half. He cannot see. He's on the rope, and still he could cut. Yeah. It's awe-inspiring, isn't it? To think there's such control Such control. I would like to know. I would like to see that. The level of his knowledge was extraordinary, divine. Yeah. What I was thinking about, the tool of the warriors. The real school of warriors. Yes, it's a very dignified, noble, yes. There's nothing petty, mean, low, personal about this. If you fall into those things, you are no longer the true warrior. So if you really look at Mars, it can provide that kind of nobility. And there is knowledge of the fifth ray in Mars, the knowledge of all the centers in the body and how to use them. Yeah, how to manipulate the powers through the ethers. Yeah, I saw in China manipulators of the ethers. They were doctors. And basically, through a wall, there was a patient. They lifted his leg up through a wall. Through a wall. Yeah, on the side of the wall. So they just worked at the lifting of the leg. The patient could not lower his leg. He just stayed there like that until, without the patient knowing it, the guy lowered the leg. They had this grasp of the ethers. You can't even get near some of these people, you know. A Finnish person, police, who had gone deeper into the martial arts. And he was able to stop 10 men with his knowledge of ether. And they all fell down. Men fell down. And he did the dragon's breath. They actually cut the lines, take the breath out of the person. Could kill you. Yeah. Well, this is Mars. Yeah. It does. It does. And especially if they've lived beyond the lower solar plexus. So, okay, then the last thing we have, the last school, is Neptune. This school concerns itself with the development and fostering of the desire element, presumably the elevation of that element, presumably. And its graduates are called the sons of Vishnu. Their symbol is a robe with a full-sailed boat portrayed over the heart, the significance of which will be apparent for those who have eyes to see. Well, you know, it looks to me like Buddhic inspiration from the plane of air. The Buddhic currents are what are driving this particular ship. So this group is very good at relating the Agni-Suryans of the Buddhic plane and of the astral plane. Yes, you would need a boat upon the waters. No, with Mars, DK says a lot about low desire and high desire, blood and water in the esoteric astrology book. The blood part is Mars, of course, and the water part is Neptune. So this is the elevation of desire until it starts to go through the heart and becomes, over the heart, right? Becomes Buddhic inspiration. Neptune is one of the major planets for the Buddhic plane. Neptune, Jupiter, Mercury. the significance of which will be apparent for those who have eyes to see. So, can we be inspired through our heart by buddhi? It's a second ray school if it's called Sons of Vishnu, although it also works with the sixth ray, because the desire element is involved. So how when you look at Neptune, you think of it as the second ray monad and the sixth ray soul. And so it fits. The school is working with both of those rays. Why he doesn't give Saturn, that's all he says. You know, that's it. I mean, he's just given us a seed. But of course, you know, as mystics in the past, we've received a lot of Neptunian currents, helping us transcend our normal circumstances, reaching beyond them, inspired beyond them. So this is the monadic, Buddhic, astral consciousness. It's the 2-4-6 line. The robe over the heart. The robe. Well, a robe is usually a vehicle of some kind. Is it the Buddhic vehicle which has been organized? Because he tells us about when you organize the Buddhic vehicle. When do you organize the Buddhic vehicle? And I have judged that although it can be done somewhat around the time of the second initiation, it does seem to follow the third initiation, the organization, the building of bodies around the higher permanent atoms. So, you know, are we inspired by these higher, harmonious, beautiful, transcendental currents coming from the Buddhic plane? Great music, great art, wonderful nature. You know, those are the things that give us this Buddhic inspiration. And since the heart is a group organ, when we're being inspired by Buddhi, we're very inclusive. Nothing separative about this at all. Neptune really does overcome separation. You know, how it blurs the boundaries between things. Neptune does that. Well, certain mystics of the medieval kind who are sixth-ray monads, he tells us, for the last 1,000 years they've been working under this Neptunian energy. And now in we are coming, trying to bring some occultism into these mystical perceptions. People who work with Neptune, they oftentimes want to discount the mind because they say it's too limiting. But obviously DK is blending Uranus and Neptune together and thinking that if we're really going to progress, we had better do both. It's a bit like the whole head center. The whole head center is Uranus, but the crown, the 12-petaled crown, which is the 12 sign ruled by Neptune, it has a lot to do with Neptune, which is Buddhic and also monadic. So if we want our full head center to be expressed, we need both Uranus and Neptune, and we need Vulcan for the jewel in the middle of the head center. Every center has its jewel, and Vulcan rules those jewels. So that's really all he gives us about these planetary schools. What difference does it make that we've studied them somewhat? Does it help us in any way to have studied these schools? We certainly, you know, cannot help but be in the Earth school, of course. No help for it. But we have lines to certain other schools, perhaps according to where our monad came from. Some of us are Mercurian monads, Jupiterian, Uranian, Venusian. Well, I don't think in this group there's too many Vulcanians. I doubt it. But we have a monadic origin on some of these planets. And maybe what's going on there does make its way to us by resonance. It has not been possible. It is not permissible. Who tells him no? Is it Master KH? Is it Sanat Kumara? Someone's saying no. It is not permissible to touch upon the other planetary schools, nor would it profit. Okay. Certain further facts can be ascertained by the student of meditation who is aligned with his ego and in touch with his egoic group. So there is a way to find out. The teaching given on our Earth scheme in the Hall of Wisdom has been dealt with in many occult books, including Initiation, Human and Solar, and need not be enlarged upon here. So, in a way, DK, what can we say? DK has given us much information about Earth School and how to progress in Earth School. Some aspects of this law are here indicated. What are we studying? What's the name of the law? What law are we studying? The law of the schools. The law of schools. That's the law we're studying. It's the 11th law, which is in a way a hierarchical law bringing you into the hierarchy, number 11, because 11 is the number of the initiate, right? The ground is by no means covered. Yes, I think we realize that. But enough has been shown to indicate its magnitude and extent. In closing, it must be pointed out that the law of karma is, from some angles of vision, the sum total of this law of attraction, which uses the form, and of all lives, to each other, which uses the form, for it governs the relation of all forms to that which uses the form, and of all lives to each other. Well, you know, karma requires third-ray mathematics, uses first-ray methods to accomplish second-ray ends. Because the purpose of karma is finally right adjustment and right relations of all lives. So, you know, it requires this third-ray, fifth-ray kind of mathematics, how to really work out what is owing, what is to be given on the path of absolute sonship. The first-ray methods is you can't escape it. In it comes, and there's no way to get beyond it. It's imposed. The karma is imposed. You may be born handicapped. Anything can happen. Some hereditary disease, some accident that has to happen, some overcoming of you by forces which cannot be deflected. But it's all to bring things into adjustment. Right, harmonious relationships. Students of the law of attraction, and that's what we've been studying here, 11 different versions of the law of attraction. We've only studied one, the 11th. The others, it's interesting, we could do it, but we can't study everything. Students of the law of attraction must be careful to bear in mind certain things. These should be carefully considered and realized as the subject is studied. They must remember first that all these subsidiary laws are really only the manifestation of the one law of attraction and also of repulsion, attraction and repulsion. That they are but differentiated terms employed to express one great method of manifestation. Secondly, that all energy demonstrating in the solar system is, after all, the energy of the logoic physical permanent atom, of which Saturn is a correspondence, having its nucleus on the atomic subplane of the cosmic physical. So he made a connection, page 406, here, right here, 406. He says basically that, oh, that's the wrong book. 406, okay. Now we try again. Yeah, he says, Neptune, Uranus, and Saturn will therefore have absorbed the essence of manifestation, and in connection with the solar logos, they correspond to the three permanent atoms in the causal body of man. We say correspond, for the analogy is not in detail. Uranus and Neptune are reflections of the logoic astral and mental permanent atoms. Saturn is in fact the correspondence to the logoic physical permanent atom. This is an occult mystery and must not be separated from its allied truth in the cosmic scheme. The cosmic scheme, what is that? Is that the solar system considered as a cosmic scheme, as one of 7 solar systems? Anyway, we have a connection. Uranus, mental permanent atom, Neptune, astral permanent atom of the solar logos, and Saturn, very much the physical permanent atom of the solar logos. Okay. Having its nucleus on the atomic subplane of the cosmic physical. This physical permanent atom, as is the case with the corresponding atom of ourselves, the incarnating jiva, has its place within the causal body of the logos on its own plane. So in some way is Saturn actually within the causal body of the solar logos. It is therefore impressed by the totality of force of the egoic cosmic lotus, or the attractive quality of cosmic love. And we could say even Saturn is. Saturn works towards the expression of love, and we've seen Saturn do some pretty wonderful things to redeem the lives that were in the previous solar system. This force is transmitted to the solar system in 2 ways. Through the medium of the sun, which is in an occult sense the physical permanent atom. It therefore attracts and holds attracted, all within its sphere of influence, thus producing the logoic physical body. So we're told that the sun, in a way, is actually, in an occult sense, the physical permanent atom of the solar logos. And through the medium of the planes, which are the correspondence to the 7 spirillae of the physical permanent atom of a human being. So we have a physical permanent atom, and it has 7 circles of force. The 7 circles of force in the physical permanent atom of the solar logos are 7 planes. Planes are circles of force. Thus, a dual type of attractive force is found, one basic and fundamental, the other more differentiated and secondary. Okay. That is the conclusion of that particular section. Okay. Is there anything we want to say of that? What has it given you? Besides the realization that Cosmic Fire is a tough book. I'm trying to think, I like to know what is the quality of teaching going on in different places, and how it can actually come here, and how we can be in the stream to receive it. We're being taught in a lot of different ways. Probably some of these teachings are not as important to us as others, but in a way, when you have planets in your horoscope, they are conduits for this kind of teaching. They do teach certain lessons. And one of the greatest teachers of all, which is Saturn, is not even mentioned here. Although he says if you align with your ego and egoic group, you might get the idea. So I think about all the teaching that is going on and how liberally it is given, even in our own horoscope. And are we open to the lessons that are coming through? Yes, Anne. Okay, so you say that even Saturn's not mentioned. There's a lot in the last karma. Yes, yes, could be related to the Saturn school. How karma is balanced out and measured. Yes, it could be a school where Saturn in Libra is very important, which is equilibrizing and adjusting everything that is due to us, either good or bad, apparently. So it's a school of balance somehow, in a way. We can, I suppose, as you say, try to understand how Saturn could be used. It's inescapable, It's a reckoning, We can't escape what Saturn brings. And since it is the major planet of discipleship, the major planet, along with Mercury, of course, it is going to give us real opportunity to face unfinished business and then be free of it, because we have actually faced it squarely through squares, etc. Well, in the back part of the book here, he comes into quite a number of subjects as he tries to deal with spirit. I think I'm trying to see here, Treatise on Cosmic Fire. Let's just see where we are. 122. Oop, that's not it. Oop. Something just happened. Okay, 1220. And let's just see the laws and symbols. Let's see what other things are coming. Ray methods of activity. These are interesting because there are 21 energies here, 3 coming under each of the 7 rays. It does require some thought, of course. And here, then the 7 hierarchies. Oh, wow. That's such a big subject. And, if you don't feel devastated by what we've already read, then that will take care of it. Here's Parabrahm. Planetary logoi. The hierarchies. Solar and planetary hierarchies. Key to the diagram of solar and planetary hierarchies. All of this is here. And then the fun begins with the nature of the 7 cosmic paths, which gives everybody a real sense of the destiny which may lie far ahead, but which inevitably we will tread. And this goes for quite a bit. This goes from 1241 to 1267. It's a lot of fun to read about these destinations. And then, of course, it shouldn't be read alone. We should go to the end of the rays and the initiations, and he amplifies the material given, giving even more of the 12. I'd almost rather talk about the 7 cosmic paths than the 12 creative hierarchies. We could. Here, initiates on path 1 fight their way onto path 6. The initiates on path 2 alchemize themselves onto path 7. Initiates on path 3, through piercing the veil, find themselves on path 5. Well, it seems all rather strange. What is this? But it is the destiny of ourselves as monadic travelers. You know, I have a feeling that not only is the sixth initiation ruled by Libra, but there's a lot of Sagittarius in it. That whole sense of outward bound. We're leaving the planet. We're going to other planets. We're going to other solar systems and constellations. It's the great adventure. So let's just see here. Well, you know, we could do this. We could do this. Well, that would be the discussion of the stanzas of Jian. And, but of course, that would require, obviously, we would be in pretty deep water there. There's a lot of symbolism in these stanzas, but having read this book, we would say, what does what he just say remind me of? Because I think what DK did is basically this whole book is an interpretation of the stanzas of Jian. And he put it in terms of that we could understand. Somewhat understand. Okay, so here's all these different paths, 6 and 7, and here are the esoteric stanzas. The dragon who hideth within the lowest of the sacred three ariseth in his might. In his mouth he holdeth the balances, and in balances he weigheth the sons of men, who upon the field of battle are impaled upon his sphere. This will require of us some new capacity beyond strict logic. Do we dare rush in where angels fear to tread? I think, you know, if you know what's coming, then, but, you know, on the other hand, most people who read this book, they reach the end of it and they say, oh, well, forget it, you know. I just couldn't be bothered. And yet, there is hinted here so much cosmic truth. They are stanzas from the archaic formulas, and they relate to different paths. Here's the path of magnetic work. Here's, training of the planetary logoi. In other words, if we've read about the cosmic paths, then each one of these cosmic paths is described in the old commentary. So it would be a very, it would be an opportunity for us to really use the intuition and to use symbolism to stimulate the intuition. So do we dare really do that? Of course, you could read this in the meanwhile during the next 6 months. The path of the solar logos. Yeah, you could do that. And then at the end, the morning stars sing together and everybody's happy. That's the end of the book. So do we dare take those esoteric stanzas? And that's not alone, you know. If I can say, here, let's see, what did you say, dear? Well, it's just so difficult. That's all. And you know, we have no way of knowing whether we're correct. You know, so not that that has ever bothered us before. And here, there are other stanzas in the beginning, stanzas of Jian. The secret of fire lieth hid in the second letter of the sacred word. We did discuss that. Om, said the mighty one, and sounded forth the word. Om, said the mighty one, let the work proceed. Here's a third stanza. The great wheel turned upon itself, the 7 lesser wheels rushed into being. They revolved like their mother around, within and forward, all that existed was. Very cosmic, very cosmic. It's a level of consciousness which we are not used to touching. But it would be nice in one class at least to make the attempt. I stopped the other classes before we got into the danger zone. This is stanza 5. So we have all of these stanzas. Stanza 6, stanza 7, 8. We would have enough to keep us busy. The 30,000 million watchers refused to heed the call. Bad on them. We enter not the forms, they said, until the 7th eon. The twice 30,000 million hearkened to the call and took the forms designed. The rebellious ones laughed within themselves and sought prelaic peace until the 7th eon. But the 7 great lords called to the greater Chohans, and with the eternal laws of the 3rd cosmic heaven entered into debate. Things are going on in heaven. The dictum then went forth. The laggards in their highest sphere heard it echo through the scheme. Not till the 7th eon, but at the 14th 7th, will the chance again come around. The first shall be last, and time be lost for eons. So you better do what you have to do, and don't laugh within yourself about how all those others taking the plunge are really doing something stupid. There are obedient high lives, and there are lives who apparently are not so obedient. We could, there's a quality in these stanzas that conveys something that mere words do not convey. So that's 11, that's 12, that's 13. 13 stanzas in the beginning of the book and 7 stanzas at the end, 20 stanzas altogether. We could be very different when we exit from when we came in. Okay, I think that the group needs a little break. Made a little window open to clear the hot air. Is it all a bit overwhelming? Or yes, that's good. Good. How did they say? If it's overwhelming, if we're on target. It's better to be a little overwhelmed than not to even try it. You know what I mean? So many people, when it comes to this book, they use it to keep doors open. Or it's on the shelf, or it's so heavy that you just put it as a doorstop, no problem. But entering into this high type of thought has an effect upon the mind. At first, you kind of wonder what that effect is and how it can possibly help. But eventually, you'll find yourself more and more, the intuition is coming. Eventually, find yourself more and more subject to the rain cloud of knowable things. And closer and closer to Master DK's mind and consciousness, and lives will be saved, which otherwise could be futile and meandering and wandering. We can go straight to the heart of the matter. Yes, I'm sure. Yeah, that's it. Well, I've heard that he will be visiting us next time. I normally I don't leak such information readily, but I have it on good account, There we are then. Well, it would be the first and only class that's ever been through those stanzas. I mean, it's that pioneering effort. However, What is it? You're not being manipulated. You're being given an incentive. But some class should do it, you know. I think so. Yes.
Michael, can you translate that into understandable English?
Probably not. Probably not. I don't know. We'll have to see because it will be quite an effort for me too. I might have to look at it before coming here. You know, that may, and then someone has to remind me that I've said that that's what we're going to do. Otherwise, I surely will forget. Okay, we take a little break. We take a little break. Test, test. Uh-oh, test, test. Good, good, good. Okay. Stop recording. Cancel. Okay, webinarians, such of you as may be present, we will be gone for 15 or 20 minutes and maybe come back by 25 after 2, your GMT time.